Welcome to the InkPad Podcast, the space between thought and creation. I am Kelly Kell, and if you're here, you're probably learning something that I've been learning, which protecting your peace is not selfish, it's necessary. This podcast is for people who are growing, healing, building businesses, raising families, discovering their purpose, and understanding that everyone cannot go with them. So Minnie Kelly had to wear many hats at such a young age. The thing is, I had to balance my academics. On top of that, I was a star athlete. In addition to that, I was a big sister. Shout out. And I had to balance all of these things while dealing with conflict at the home that I was raised in. So growing up, our parents used to tell us, do as I say, not as I do. But to me, I feel like that was a way that they indirectly conditioned us to say one thing but do or mean something else. The inconsistent behavior from our role models did not allow us to establish those clear, healthy boundaries. In fact, we were taught to compromise and not stand on business no matter who the person is. Fast forward, I'm a young adult. I'm my head first, 5150, just trying to find my way. I have a lot of successful family members who went to college, graduated, and I'm looking at the life that they live. I'm like, hey, what career path I need to be on to where I could have a nice house like that. I could have my finances together to where I can drive whatever car I want to drive. However, as I began to go down those career paths and, with my major in school, I found that I wasn't even interested in all of that. So I had to go back to the drawing board and figure that out. And then in the midst of that, my life began to be chaotic because I decided to enter motherhood without even having my life together. On top of that, I'm just trying to work. I'm trying to survive. I love the thought of being an entrepreneur. I have these $1 million ideas in my head and I want to act out on them. But my life is just all over the place because those boundaries were not set to where, hey, you start something, you complete it. Because I didn't have my own identity established, I allowed myself to put everyone before me. Even self-care was at the bottom of the totem pole. And we all know self-care wasn't even really talked about until COVID. Over the years, I realized that I needed a change as far as my habits and setting those boundaries. However, it became a challenge when I would try to build that consistency with, hey, take care of yourself, put you first, start taking yourself on dates, but life get to life and you just go back into your old habits. After going through a series of exhaustion and realizing that so many people benefited from me overextending myself and how much it took from me, I decided that I wanted better for myself and I was no longer going to abandon myself for anyone. So when we talk about boundaries, boundaries are not a wall, okay? Boundaries is an attitude. Your attitude should give off how you're supposed to be treated, what you're not going to tolerate, and what you're not going to sacrifice anymore. So when we talk about establishing boundaries with different things in our life, let's look at a few examples. So when it comes to our emotions, right? Emotions are constantly changing. How you feel right now, you can actually feel differently in about 2 to 3 minutes, okay? And when it comes to your emotions, you never want to give people the opportunity to have power or control over what you feel. I find it easy to be slow to respond to different things, or sometimes I don't respond at all. I might just look. Let's look at time. Your time is your most valuable asset that you do not get back. And you don't want people playing in your face and playing with your time. So you want to make sure you control, even on the phone, hey, this person got 10 minutes on this conversation. Find you a way to get off the phone, because if you stay on the phone all day when you have other things that you could be doing for yourself, you let so much time pass by and you don't get anything done. So you have to govern and manage your time because you don't get it back. Establish that boundary. So now let's talk about finances. And once upon a time, when I tell you my finances had me in a chokehold, baby. Like, damn. So you know what I started doing? I started fighting back. Created me a budget, stuck to my budget, stopped eating out as much. And I established those boundaries because if my finances are out of whack, then that means it's going to be difficult for me to do other things throughout my life, especially with my kids. Now, when it comes to the finances, you want to make sure that you have something for a rainy day. You have an emergency fund. And if you don't plan ahead for those things and establish that financial boundary, be out here struggling, stressed out. How about our workplace? You know, sometimes we can go through some unorthodox type stuff at our jobs. We deal with different people with different personalities. We have our bosses, you know, our superiors. You know, everybody has a different type of personality, and you have to know how to deal with those people. So establishing those boundaries with how far you go in conversation with people and how you present yourself is highly important. When we talk about the family boundary, that's a whole nother topic for another day. However, it is highly important for you to establish those boundaries where you, for one, you establish what you're going to tolerate. You establish what you're going to accept. On top of that, you teach family that, hey, especially if you're an adult now, you ain't got to be around nobody. You got to. Last on my list of some examples of setting boundaries is those romantic relationships. I done had my fair share. I done learned some things. I done did some things. However, we have to establish those boundaries. Establishing boundaries in a relationship is not one-sided by no means. It's so important for you to respect the person in their presence, what they do, and what they say. It goes both ways, and that's a level of communication that needs to be established as well in order for both sides to have that level of boundaries set for the longevity of your relationship. One area that I had to tussle with when it comes to setting boundaries was those kids. When I tell you, I have been to war and back behind my kids. And as parents, we feel like, hey, we gotta be there, we gotta do this, we gotta go to bat for our kids. But the thing of the matter is, they so resilient. A lot of things we do for them, they can do without. They're tough. They will be fine. You know, they need some tough love sometimes. And as my kids got older and when I started paying attention to the patterns as they all go through their developmental stages, they just be testing me to see how far I will go and do certain things that they want me to do. So I started establishing those boundaries with them where just being more firm with chores, with follow-up on homework, just letting them know, hey, I'm here, I'm paying attention. Because if they feel like you're not paying attention, they'll drift off. And just saying, hey, every time they call, you're not just running, unless it's an emergency. You know how to be able to decipher what situations call for you to, run immediately. But all in all, I've learned a lot when it came to establishing those boundaries with those kids. And they adjusted well. Now, as you begin to establish those boundaries, you're going to find that some people do not like this newfound version of you. You know, they want that old version where they can get different things that they wanted out of you without having to put up such a fight. But at the same time, you have to look out for you. You have to put you first. So I have a challenge for you today. So I want you to ask yourself some questions to kind of test yourself to see where you are and where you may need to improve. Where am I overextending myself? Ask yourself this question so you can realize, like, in what settings and what environments are you overextending yourself? and how you can turn that around to be a better version of you and pour more time into you. What conversations are you avoiding with certain people? Are you just being silent about certain situations just to keep the peace? Like, what conversations do you need to have that's going to bring you peace after you say what it is you need to say respectfully? I encourage you to write one boundary that you can commit to this week, and then follow back up with yourself and see how this working out for you. On today's ink drop of episode 1, always remember that you teach people how to treat you based on how you treat yourself. So treat yourself with love, treat yourself with kindness, treat yourself with respect. And that's what everybody gonna have to conform to. So from me to you, you don't have to earn rest. You don't have to apologize for protecting your peace. And you don't have to explain every decision. I hope today's conversation reminded you that growth begins when you stop shrinking yourself. Remember to protect your peace and keep doing it big on purpose.